Hello, everyone, and welcome to the special deadCenter edition of the Cinematic Schematic. I'm your host, Caleb Masters, the film critic and editor-in-chief at the Cinematropolis.com. I am so excited about today's interview because we're talking with a very good friend who is also a pseudo co-host of this podcast about a film he's making, has been making the entire time I've known him in one form or another. The writer, director, and producer of You People, Laron Chapman. Welcome to the show as a guest.
As a guest this time.
I know.
It's different.
And we're going to be talking all about your film, You People. But we're not just joined by Laron today. We're also joined by one of the executive producers who also plays a supporting role of that bitch in the movie, Yousef Kazemi. Welcome to the Cinematic Schematic.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, without further ado, let's get to talking about your film premiering at the deadCenter Film Festival this weekend, You People.
My name is Chad Johnson, and I'm not your typical black guy. I shop at Hollister, I listen to rock music, and I think 2 Chainz is just a fancy name for a hardware store.
You are an enigma.
Hey, I'm shaking off the haters.
Chad, your parents are blacker than you. I see that books aren't the only thing we're here to check out.
She's not interested, Mike. I mean, look at her. She's into black guys.
I close my eyes to see everything comes alive.
An intelligent, whitewashed black youth adopted by a Caucasian family has a crisis of ethnic identity while growing up in white suburbia with his urban culture-obsessed white best friend. Well, Laron, this sounds extremely topical, and I can't wait to see it. Could you go ahead and kick us off by telling us a little bit more about You People? What kind of film can viewers expect to see?
It's a satirical comedy, or dramedy, I should say, because it's a nice balance of drama and humor in it that is centered around kind of stereotypes towards different minority groups. I think the lead character in the film is a black man in college. He's adopted by a white family, and he kind of goes his whole life not knowing much about his own heritage, his own culture. He's into country music and rock. He, shops at Banana Republic. He's very alternative. His best friend is the opposite of him. He's a white guy that's kind of steeped in the hip-hop culture scene. And so they have this kind of odd pairing, kind of buddy comedy of sorts. Again, set in college. There's a girl on campus that is the main character is really attracted to, and he overhears this conversation that she has and misunderstands her and assumes that she's only into stereotypical black men. And so he has to consult in his white friend to help him tap into his inner blackness. So I think that's my...
kind of a way to reverse the stereotypes, right? Like the archetypes, which I think has been prevalent in Hollywood for a long time, right?
Yeah. And I thought it would be interesting kind of inverting those stereotypes that way, because I think then people were going to be able to just look at all the characters as people and not the stereotype that's associated with the individual people. And then, kind of is refreshing to kind of look at it and then say, like, none of these people are who I think they are. There's something more to them. There's a little more dynamic to them in that way. But,
is this something that you came up with when you were in college? Or you kind of like developed as you worked on other film sets, or?
I feel like it's kind of the culmination of just all things I've experienced in my life as a double minority. But I think the inspiration for it came in college when my roommate, actually my dorm mate, had told me that I was the whitest black guy that he'd ever met. And I always thought that was interesting because I took that, I didn't take it as a compliment when he said it, and I know that he meant it as one. But I thought that, that it kind of had a really interesting insight. Like, why did he think that, you know what I mean? Like, why would he think to say that to me? And it's obviously something that people, do in fact think about certain types of black people who are, I don't know, more fluent or more intelligent or more articulate. So I kind of birthed it out of that kind of experience of being kind of associated with a stereotype that I didn't think, applied to me personally.
Right. So, and again, so the whitest black guy, not a compliment. Just lay out there,
not a compliment, guys. Not a compliment.
So that's kind of the where the idea came from. So how long has this film been in the works?
I want to say, really honestly, from inception, probably about 3.5 years. But the process of actually doing the hard work for it, probably 2.
Okay. So did you start writing the script 2 years ago? Or?
Yes. I attended the Austin Film Festival for a film that was premiering there that I also worked on, August, Osage County. And it was the Writers Festival, and I got really inspired because the whole festival was geared towards just all, the writing component of filmmaking. And so I left there what I felt like I was equipped with all these tools and knowledge from all the panels and different discussions that were had there. And I went home, after that festival, and about a month later, I had the first 200-page draft of You People. So,
200 pages.
Yeah, it was Lord of the Rings.
It was
long.
an epic, yeah. So is that where? At what point did you drop the ring into the Mordor? Yeah,
it 4 or 5 times. There's 4 or 5 endings. Yeah. But yeah, it developed from there, and it was, it's since obviously been condensed to a much tighter, less sprawling epic of sorts. But
well, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, because again, as a writer, that's I think a lot of writers do. They write this huge, epic, awesome story, and 200 pages. For those of you who aren't familiar with filmmaking and how long, that's a very, very, very lengthy script.
It's roughly 4 hours.
Yeah.
So we're really Gone with the Wind more than Lord of the Rings. But yeah.
But it's good. It's good because you come up with this big idea and this vision that you have to figure out. Okay, so how can I pare this down by also keeping all those ideas present in the script? And that's also a very common part of the filmmaking process, I think, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I felt like as much as it's changed since that 200-page script, I'm really thankful for that 200-page script because at least there was enough content there for a miniseries, but at least I had the backstories for all of my central characters, and so whenever I was dialing it back, I could always refer back to what those individual people had been through and then kind of allude to it either visually or with a line of dialogue, or basically it made me a better writer, I thought.
Excellent. So Yousef, Laron has a 4-hour epic. He's like, I want to make this movie. And you also have a lot of experience here in the Oklahoma scene, working for the Oklahoma Film Music Office. What do you say to Laron when he comes to you with this idea?
We had many discussions from the beginning of, I guess you'd call it pre-production, about what this project was going to be for Laron. Originally, we'd even talked should it be a short film, thinking about budget-wise and what's the best way to tell this story. But I think for Laron, it was important for his first project as a writer-director to tell his truth and what he wanted it to be. And so ambitiously, he went for the feature. And like we've kind of talked about, it has evolved a lot from the 200 pages. And what was the actual page count that it ended up being?
In the end, I believe it was 93 minutes, and it equates to about 95 minutes on screen. So,
well, and I think even from that final draft of the script too, the story evolved in the editing room, even from what was included and what was taken out to get to the strongest meat of the story and what characters that involved. And I think he finished it and made it into the strongest piece it could be for his messaging and what he wanted.
And Yousef's actually had the privilege or the the obligation to watch every draft of the film.
Oh, wow.
With exception of the one that's at the world premiere. So that'll be a surprise for you. So I no longer have notes to take back. He will just tell me what he thinks of that version. But he's seen the 2 or 3 versions that came before it with studious notes for how to, he's one of the people that I refer to also whenever I'm brainstorming creatively, and he will be honest. So
give him that feedback, right?
Yes, and I'm so excited to see what the final locked version is going to be, because I've heard it's from that first version, it has changed significantly.
Yes.
So Yousef, were you involved with location scouting or casting? Was that something you were hands on with? I'm just kind of curious. What was because obviously once we got the script, we got the story, but how do we get this thing made?
You basically helped me with casting. We went through all of the auditions. You can kind of talk about that process a little bit, but we,
I was honored to be what did you say, like an advisor or just an opinion person, give opinions on casting, and I think a few of the locations, because our office used to be located across from one of your primary locations that ended up working out for your school campus. So I was glad about that. And I mean, it's interesting because some of the people who were cast within the community, you know, it's kind of small and word of mouth. His leading actress was someone who was my leading actress in my short film, Yes, We're Open.
Award-winning film, Yes, We're Open.
I don't know about all that. but and then, you know, a close friend of mine who'd also been in some projects here is the supporting role of Michael.
Michael, yeah, he plays the
James Austin Kerr.
Yeah, he plays the white character that has the reversed stereotype. Yeah.
So yeah, no, it was actually an honor and lots of fun to kind of be a small wingman for you and supporting you and kind of ultimately seeing what your vision was going to be on screen. Yeah. But it was I will say it was kind of fun watching a lot of the casting tapes and seeing, you know, watch Laron know when someone fit the mold of what he was looking for, and then maybe when someone else surprised him and he took a chance on something that wasn't originally the mental image or what he thought in his head of what a role that he wrote should look like or be.
I don't think there was any stage of this process that didn't at least get put on his table in some capacity, at least for, if anything, just for brainstorming or insights. So
right, excellent. So this film has been in the works for years and years, but I do think that the timing is of the release is interesting. I know this is something you've talked about, you know, quite a bit through the last couple of years, post 2016 election, where it seems like there's been a lot of old school rhetoric that's come back up. Unfortunately, you know, your story, it makes it that much more relevant. It was always going to be relevant, but now it's a conversation that everyone's having to like really talk about again in a way that's really and is encouraging in some ways, not so much in others.
Yeah, well, it's weird because you're right. It is more relevant now, and because when I originally wrote it, I just wrote it to have the conversation with myself or to kind of deal with the problems I was kind of dealing with internally, personally, as it pertains to different stereotypes and kind of prejudices that people have had towards me. But it's interesting how the timing of it is right, because when I wrote it, I think when I finished the first draft, Dear White People was on its way to premiering being into the you know the cinema space, and I remember thinking like, man, this film is touching on a lot of the same things as my film. I'm wondering if they're going to think that I lifted ideas from them. But then after watching the film, I realized the story was drastically different, but we had just kind of tapped into like a cultural consciousness. I think that this is just what people want to talk about, which made me think to myself that that meant that my film probably did have a space for, you know, for audiences, because it was something that was very topical of the moment. And as you said, you know, now as the process has developed, kind of, it's been, I won't say at a glacial pace, but at a steady pace, you know, from inception to now. Yes, we've had the election. We've had a lot of different, we had the Black Lives Matter movement was birthed in the midst of all of this process. So all of those kind of socio economical, political elements that have been kind of, you know, steeped in everyone's mind here, just in the world. Now the film seems to have, it's almost like it needs to come out now. And so I couldn't have picked a better first film to write and direct. So,
and do you think did the impact have the events that occurred impacted your script or your ideas at all?
Definitely in the revisions as things started to, well, for one, I made the mistake of making way too many pop culture references that, you know, and, you know, three years ago were funny, but now are probably a little dated. So what I did is just kind of, because I could catch most of these things, I was able to clean up a lot of that in the revisions for the script. And so there are some lines in it now that, you know, that are really relevant to right now. So I definitely see it now. But definitely some things that had to be modified, not just the timing of things, the things that were probably not politically correct to say that were then at the time not as inflammatory. Just a lot of things that I had to kind of keep my optics very, you know, alert and aware. But
Yousef, so again, Laron brings you this idea, and you're working with him on how does this film get made? Did a lot of the ideas he's communicating here, was this something that resonated with you throughout the process as well?
Absolutely. I was just sitting here thinking, actually, and you know, Oklahoma's film scene is really growing, and it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be a filmmaker, but I'm not just saying this because I know you, but I can't think of anyone right now locally who is putting this much diversity and topical storytelling at the forefront. Like, it was really important for you, not only this being your story, but inclusive of all ethnicities, minorities, anyone who's felt like kind of an outsider. This is kind of for them. So, yeah, I mean, myself, I'm a minority. I'm a gay man. I think there's something relatable for everyone in this movie. And I think that's part of the appeal of it, too. If everyone should find something in it that resonates with them.
But I think something that's interesting about this film is you have a lot of experience as a PA. Like you said, you've worked on August, Osage County, and a number of other films. Wildlife, I think, recently. That was a Paul Dano's film that premiered at, was it Sundance earlier this year, I think?
Getting great reviews.
Good deal. But you never actually worked as like a director of photography or a director-writer. This is like your debut feature film. Was that intimidating at first? Were you a little nervous?
Absolutely. I wasn't going to direct the film initially. I was just going to essentially produce and then obviously take the credit for the writing, the screenplay. But the further I went along with it, I mean, the people I'd surrounded myself, the producers I surrounded myself with, everyone that was, helping me with the early developmental process of it were telling me that I just don't know anyone else that should direct this but you. Like, if this is your story in many ways, it's loosely based on experiences from your life. No one is going to be able to capture those moments, the little nuances of the experience as you are. And so if you're intimidated by directing the film, just know that you'd be the one in charge. You'd have creative control over your story. And then at the end of the day, the only person that you're going to disappoint is yourself. If it falls apart, you're not having to answer to anybody. So in that sense, I kind of talked myself into it as well. And so, yeah, that definitely was intimidating because, like you said, coming from being a PA, I will say that from being a PA through osmosis, just being able to drink it, I think it's a really valuable position, even though it doesn't feel like it when you're on set. But after, in hindsight, you realize that you've really been able to drink in what everybody's been doing. And you get to see them at work, and you have contact with virtually everybody on set because you're involved in a small capacity with everybody. And so I took that for granted at the time, but knowing that in the end, when I went to crew this film, when I realized I knew a lot more than I realized, and things I just picked up on from watching other people do it, I was able to just say, hey, I know a makeup artist, I know a camera guy, I know a sound person, I know actors, so I was able to crew my film through the relationships I'd built on those films over the course of 5-6 years of working in film with a below the line position. So.
Well, it's interesting because I think there's a philosophy. Maybe this is more so prevalent in like Hollywood or some of these big studio towns. The idea that you kind of have to work your way up through the ranks. And while you have done a lot of, you have been a PA on a number of really high profile sets here in Oklahoma, you didn't shoot 10 films as a DP or a photographer.
No.
You didn't write like 20 scripts that got made or something. You started out the gate saying, hey, I'm writing, and because you wanted to make sure it was the best story you could tell,
right,
and it was so personal to you, you also took up the director's seat. So how did you knew all these people, did you have to lean a lot more on your talent?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't take full credit for what the finished product you're going to see. It looks better, sounds better, and is much bigger of a production than I could have ever imagined my first film would be, because I entrusted so many people that I had worked with. And all of those people were kind of experts in their own respective crafts. And I made a point whenever I was doing this to surround myself with people who were better than me, who were better at their jobs than me, I should say. And were able to, kind of help me through the process of, one, nerves, also feeling like I was in over my head, and also, consulting me on things that I probably wouldn't know to ask or think about. So
that's when you lean on Yousef. You say, Yousef, what am I missing here?
Yeah, what am I missing here? What's wrong here exactly? Yeah. So, and my Jacob, the Burns brothers as well. There was a huge process of that too, kind of helped me a lot in pre-production with just like making sure the script was right, understanding things that could be conveyed visually that we didn't need to say, and then also just composition and blocking and making sure that the film had the right tonality and visual style that would be appropriate for the story we were telling. But
Yousef, so you also, outside of being an executive producer, we mentioned you're also in the film as that bitch.
That's me.
Self-titled that bitch. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about your character and the role you play in the film.
Well, I play a sassy drag queen, self-named that bitch, self-proclaimed number one. And I just have a wonderfully small scene exploring, I think, one of the other kind of subplots and opening up to the LGBT community as a group of those people. And it's a nice, fun little bit. I was not expecting a role. I was honored that Laron asked me to be in it. And it was just incredibly special, and it was awesome for many reasons. One being I got to share a scene with his lead actress, who was also in my short, and two, to kind of be there on set that day and see like Laron in action, see him work, see the incredible team of people he had around him supporting him. This particular scene was like shot on a snow day.
Yeah.
It was a big extra call day, and people still came out, worked hard, pulled through, and from what I've seen, it looks fantastic. And so, no, it was an honor to be a part of it in that sense, and even more special to kind of see this whole army on, I don't remember what day it was of your shoot, but I mean, it's like a 16, 17-day boot camp, and to see you lead the troops and also them support you and it all come together, it's a very, very cool process and thing to see.
Excellent. And have you acted in a lot of other films before this one?
No. I had a similar role, tiny, in Lance's movie Oh Brother.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I literally just shimmied across the stage, but I was living my best life. I was living my best life doing it. So I would guess maybe that set me up for a speaking role in You People.
So maybe, this is the Oklahoma film scene cinematic universe. They're all intertwined. So you're the connective tissue right there.
I'm the Marvel bitch.
Exactly. You're the Stan Lee. Exactly.
Yes.
But what's funny, and I feel like you downplay yourself too much, but he's definitely has a theater background. So, I mean, he's been extras in small roles in a lot of films, but and he has a lot of personality. He makes his own sometimes too.
You get the punchline of the trailer joke too.
I was so excited to be the bumper of the trailer.
Yeah.
That felt like, basically, if anyone's looking for a drag queen for any future Oklahoma films, I'm the local divine. I'll do whatever you want. No. Yeah.
Excellent. So before we wrap up, I want to ask each one of you, because I'm sure you have differing perspectives on it. But for audiences who go and attend, we're not going to spoil the movie or anything along those lines. But for audiences that attend, what do you hope to see? What do you hope they take away from watching this film?
One of my favorite films is American Beauty, and the tagline for it was "Look closer at the people around you." And I think that also, in some sense, maybe subconsciously, kind of played into the idea. I'm hoping people walk away from it, being able to look at people, with a three-dimensional lens, and not seeing just that surface value, kind of preconceived notions that we have about people of any demographic, not just racially or diverse in that sense, but hopefully, that they're comfortable in their own skin, and they're proud of who they are, that they don't make excuses for it, and that they allow into their hearts and minds, some level of tolerance and compassion towards all different people.
Well, ditto Laron. No, he's so eloquent. I second that, and something I know Laron and I discussed, and I'm sure he discussed it with others, and even after the final cut of the film, was like the tone of the film, and like, how hard are you pushing this messaging? What like, how aggressive do you want to be? What's the most digestible version of what you're trying to say? And my opinion is, I think you found it in a way that is thought-provoking while also being very gentle, and making people, look positively inward about their actions and relationships and people in their lives. And I think it's a great... I think deadCenter is going to be a great world premiere for you. That festival gets all kinds of audiences. It's going to be a packed house. And I think word of mouth will hopefully spread very quickly about the film, people's excitement for it, and the messaging, and hopefully like people continue to see it and spread the word.
Gentlemen, this has been a really great talk with you. This is, again, Laron Chapman's film, You People. Is there anything else either of you would like to add about the film before we wrap up today?
See it. No.
When can they... One more reminder, Laron. When can they see it?
They can see it at the world premiere of the opening night of deadCenter, June 7th at 8:30 p.m.
That's a Thursday, correct?
That's a Thursday night. And then they can also, there's another opportunity to see it closing night, Sunday, June 10th at 6 p.m.
All right. And lastly, if people want to keep up with You People online, where you have any social media channels they can follow?
Yes, absolutely. They can follow the Facebook page at facebook.com/YouPeopleMovie. And then it's also under You People Film on Twitter and You People Film on Instagram.
All right. Excellent. Yousef, Laron, thank you so much for joining the Cinematic Schematic today. I am very much looking forward to watching the film at deadCenter. If you're at home and listening and you've enjoyed our talk with Laron and Yousef, make sure to stay tuned to Cinematropolis.com for even more deadCenter coverage, including filmmaker interviews, film reviews, and more. You can check out the website or follow us on social media on Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematropolis or on Twitter and Instagram at @TheCinematrop. Thank you so much for tuning into this special deadCenter edition of the podcast, and we'll catch you back on the Cinematic Schematic again with more interviews next time.